So welcome everybody to our webinar for landowners relating to in regard to the natural flood management in the Cadoxton catchment. In terms of who's on the call from the project team, I'm Hannah Deneen from Grasshopper Communications, and I'm helping out with leading on the community and stakeholder engagement for the project. Then we've got Tim Marshall. Don't know if Tim, you want to just say hi.
Hi, I'm Tim Marshall. So I'm the lead for NRW's natural flood management project for the Cadoxton catchment. Thanks for attending.
And then Tamsin from Arup.
Yes, my name is Tamsin Chisnall. I'm an environmental scientist, but I'm specialising in natural flood management for this project.
Thank you. So in terms of the aims for tonight, what we want to do is briefly sort of set out the context of the project and also explain to you about natural flood management and what the options potentially are in the Cadoxton catchment. We want to sort of gain an understanding, obviously you're landowners in the area, and want to understand from you how your land is currently managed and how water interacts with it. So we've got a questions and answers session, which we see very much as a discussion session, really opening up and having a conversation. And in that also, we wanted to, having shared with you our NFM opportunities, is to look at what you think might be an opportunity in your area. And then really we're here to sort of ask any queries and look at any sort of key impacts that these proposals might have. So just in terms of the agenda tonight, Tim's going to run through the project overview. Then we're going to be looking at opportunities for collaborating with landowners. Tamsin's going to explain all about natural flood management. And then we're going to have a Q&A session. And finally, we're going to wrap up with the next steps and just sort of refocus on what we're trying to achieve at the project. So over to you, Tim, if you could start off, that'd be great.
Thanks very much indeed. Sorry, I'm just trying to get my notes aligned with the slide that I can see on the screen. So yeah, thanks a lot for coming once again. And really, we'd like to speak to you about opportunities for us to collaborate with communities in the catchments of the Cadoxton and East Brook, including landowners, to see how we can work together and learn together to consider some changes to the landscape that could deliver benefits for everyone. So periods of heavy rainfall over recent years have highlighted a flooding problem in Dinas Powys, and you may be well aware of that. So records going back to the early 1900s show there's been several instances of flooding in Dinas Powys that have impacted the residents and properties, especially on St Cadoc's Avenue, Greenfield Avenue, Elm Grove Place, and the Cardiff Road at East Brook. And if you can flick to the next slide, please, Hannah, thanks. Most recently, 98 properties flooded internally on the 23rd of December in 2020, and there was a near-miss incident as well in February in the same year. And I think these photos show that it's a pretty devastating thing to happen. Local people have been really traumatized, and they still to this day remain really nervous about the future and have a bit of anxiety when they hear the rain coming down on their roofs. And the photos show, you know, flooding internally. The one on the right is not a great photo, but you know, this happened on the 23rd of December. You know, and the fact that you can see floodwater in the front room and Christmas cards on the mantelpiece is pretty heartbreaking. And then bottom left, you know, you see the aftermath where people have had to, you know, strip their carpets out, cupboards, kitchen cabinets, all of that stuff, and it's all, you know, gone in the skip. But one of our roles, one of NRW's roles, is to see what can be done to reduce the risks, and especially in the face of climate change, which is likely to make the situation worse and exacerbate the flood risks. So if we could have the next slide, please, Hannah. In 2021, we developed a business case that focused on a new floodwater storage area adjacent to the Cwm George Woods between Case Hill Woods and Hales Wood, and also some proposals for natural flood management. But those proposals, especially the ones around the storage area, faced really significant objections, and in the face of those objections, NRW agreed that we'd shelve our thinking and shelve that option for the time being. But more recently, Welsh Government's given us a remit and funding to look into natural flood management, which is sometimes called nature-based solutions. And we want to engage with landowners and tenants to explore the potential. And we're speaking to farmers in the catchments through a separate forum that we've organised, but we wanted this forum to be for kind of non-farming landowners. But it's about, if we could have the next slide, please, Hannah. It's really about exploring that potential, but it's quite complex, really, because there are members of the community who are at risk of flooding, and there's other members of the community who potentially hold the keys to some of the potential solutions. So we're really keen to speak to landowners to understand whether landowners can help us, whether we can generate ideas together and think about the options that might work for the benefit of all. We're at the early stages of the project, and it's really about working together to co-design the solutions if we can agree that there is some potential, and to think about the costs and the benefits for all parties, really. So at that point, I'd like to hand back to Tamsin, who's going to talk about some of the specific ideas and options that we want to consider with you for the Cadoxton and Eastbrook catchments. Thanks, Tamsin.
Great, thanks, Tim. So I just wanted to explain to you guys the concept of natural flood management. So in short, it's basically where you slow surface water flow and you increase the time that surface water flow takes to get into the watercourse. So you do this by working with natural processes and by nature-based solutions. So doing small-scale interventions that encourage already natural processes that are occurring. If I could have the next slide, please. Great, thank you. So as Tim mentioned, we have quite an amazing opportunity to do something really innovative here, where the community can pull together and do something that could potentially reduce flood risk, but also deliver some of the amazing wider benefits that natural flood management delivers. So here's a list of the wider benefits. So in general, natural flood management improves water quality. It also improves or reduces nutrient load and improves soil condition. It enhances biodiversity and supports pollinators. It also improves drought resilience, improves productivity of land, can enhance well-being by preventing flooding downstream, supports climate change adaptation and mitigation, and can enable diversification of farm income. Could I get the next slide, please? Thank you. So this is one of the natural flood management interventions that we're considering within the study area. So this is a runoff attenuation feature. It basically is a feature that either has a earth band or a wooden structure like is shown there that usually follows the topography of the land and stores water in peak flow, so in high flooding events. So this slows the flow, it helps improve soil condition, water quality, and can improve farm productivity by preventing other areas becoming wet all year round. If I could get the next slide, please. This is another intervention we're considering. So this is large woody debris jams that go in the channel. So they encourage the slowing of water behind them, and obviously they spill out, encourage the water to spill out onto the floodplain either side when a flood event occurs. They're great for improving fish spawning habitat and invertebrates, water quality, and nutrients and condition within the watercourse and flow. And yes, that's quite a few. Could I get the next? Thank you. So this one is floodplain restoration. So it's restoring floodplains and making them function as they did previously. So floodplain restoration helps carbon sequestration, it improves nutrients in soil, but also provides a variety of habitat niches that isn't really found elsewhere, especially in the UK. So a really special environment. Floodplain restoration. Could I get the next slide, please? Increasing tree cover kind of does what it says on the tin, but it helps reduce flooding by intercepting precipitation and improving soil condition. It also regulates the microclimate around it and improves soil quality and nutrients. Could I get the next slide, please? Wetland creation. So this is where we create a wet area of land and habitat to store a large volume of water. This helps to improve the diversity of habitats, also can improve soil conditions, water quality, and reduce drought risk in the area, and obviously flood storage. Could I get the next slide, please? And this is the last sort of intervention we're considering, but obviously we can tweak all of them, which is contour ploughing, which is basically where you plant or plough to the contours of the land to intercept surface water runoff and slow the flow. So this often has soil improvements and obviously reduces flood risk and nutrient load into the channel. Could I get the thank you, last slide? So this is the study area that we've looked at so far for our feasibility. So we've considered the Cadoxton, the Bullcroft and the Rinstone Brook. We've identified potential options for natural flood management throughout these areas, but we've used a no constraints modelling approach, but it's purely at the feasibility stage. So it's only showing that there is potential there, but that's as far as we went. So
yeah, so it's really just a chance to kind of reiterate some of the benefits that we believe we can bring to the wide community of the catchments. But over and above that, I think, you know, we've just got an opportunity to do something really amazing, something innovative, where as Tasmin said, where the community kind of pulls together, not just to reduce flooding risk, but to improve the environment, improve soil conditions, you know, that support for pollinators, which are always in the news at the moment, to improve drought resilience, and maybe improve the natural beauty and the economic prosperity of the area as well. And I suppose my question is, you know, can the Vale of Glamorgan community be at the front of the queue to take advantage of, you know, some incentives that are offered, that are going to be offered under the kind of sustainable agriculture schemes? Can we be, you know, at the front of the queue to take our destiny into our own hands in terms of, you know, mitigating the impacts of climate change, but also, you know, reducing climate change by using the land or rethinking the land use in more sustainable ways. So that's about the wrap up, I think. I think there maybe is one or two more slides, Hannah, if you'd like to move on. Yeah, so it's really that conversation, sharing knowledge. We want to understand how the land and water interact, understand potential concerns that landowners may have, but also what are the ideas, and you know, how can we take advantage of any interest in our project or encourage interest. So that's the conversation, and that's the conversation that we'll keep happening. So don't be surprised if you see invitations to you know, other future events to keep the conversation going.